Remember there was a poll about a couple weeks ago that said, hey, if there was a third-party candidate that got in on the left here, it would be trouble for Cuomo. And all of a sudden, what looks to be a blowout for the governor's re-election bid all of a sudden gets really close. And what about that talk about that hypothetical challenger to Andrew Cuomo from the unhappy liberal left? Well, the governor thought that was all behind him, that after he did some backroom negotiating and convinced some skeptical folks, and he got the nomination of the Working Families Party just last weekend. But the left may not go quietly into the good night. And Andrew, he spoke with the woman still considering a challenge to the most powerful Democrat in New York. And Andrew, I know you're going to enjoy saying her name because how many times do you get to say Zephyr Teachout?
Not as often as I expected, really, Rich. TJ, last weekend, Fordham law professor Zephyr Teachout lost the WFP nomination to Cuomo by nearly 20 points. But the deal the WFP made with Cuomo isn't sitting well with her, and now she's considering taking on Cuomo in another venue, gathering signatures to force Cuomo into a primary in the Democratic Party. We spoke this afternoon. Professor, lots of talk in the wake of the Working Families Party convention last weekend that you're thinking of challenging Governor Cuomo for the WFP or even the Democratic nomination. Have you decided? Will you run? And what's the criteria on which you will decide?
I would love to run against Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary. I would really love to be governor. And I'm trying to decide in the next week or two whether I'll be able to do that. There's only one criteria as far as I'm concerned. I just need to know if I can put together the resources. I am completely convinced that my vision for what this state should be and can be is much more aligned with the people of New York than Andrew Cuomo's. Andrew Cuomo has built this, or has failed to build an economy that works for everyone. His basic economic policy is tax breaks for billionaires. His education policy is to ignore and starve the schools. I have a different vision of a different economy and fully funded public schools. So there's only one question I have is, I'm not a extremely wealthy person. I don't have a lot of really rich friends, but I'm going to be spending the next couple of weeks trying to put together the resources to mount a very serious challenge against Andrew Cuomo.
Has this governor not lived up to his promises in your mind, or has he just got a different agenda from where you think the governor's office should be in New York?
When the governor, I supported Andrew Cuomo in 2010. Actually, at one point, I was even hunting around to find ways to volunteer for him. I was so excited about the idea that he was going to take on the corruption of Albany in a systemic way and actually change the way campaigns are funded. So school teachers can run for office even if they don't have rich friends, and so that all of us can know that elected officials are representing the public instead of just the few wealthy donors. He has completely failed on that. He says time and time again that he supports public funding of elections, but he's never used his substantial power as the governor of the state to make that happen. So that's just one of many disappointments, but I'll be frank, to me that was the final straw. I was thinking about running for governor in late March, and when the budget came out and there was no serious commitment to publicly funded campaigns, I said, you know, I got to go forward with this.
You were not in consideration at the Democratic convention. You were at the Working Families Party convention, where the governor got nearly 60% of the vote from the convention floor. Did the Working Families Party make a mistake last weekend?
I wish they'd picked me. I understand the choices they made. I'm a relative unknown. But I will say that the convention gave me an opportunity that I'm really thankful for. I got to meet hundreds of New York's most committed organizers and citizens and teachers, people who really have spent their lives trying to fight to build a economy that works for working families, that works for small businesses, that works for teachers. And although I'm disappointed with the result, I'm thrilled that it gave me that opportunity.
The governor made some concessions to get the Working Families Party nomination, including pushing for Democratic control of the state Senate, campaign finance reform, the minimum wage, the DREAM Act. Do you not trust Governor Cuomo to keep that end of the deal?
I don't think Governor Cuomo has proven himself that trustworthy when it comes to promises. So it's going to be up to us collectively to hold him to that. This is a Democratic state, and we certainly need a Democratic Senate. So it's a little bit a little too late for a Democratic governor to commit to trying to get a Senate that aligns with his purported values. I do think, you know, I plan to police the deal. I know that the mayor, de Blasio of New York, plans to police the deal. Lots of unions will be. That's really important. But I also think we have to demand much, much more. We've gotten too used to sort of begging for scraps and hoping for, you know, a New York we can settle in instead of a New York we really want to live in.
So, Professor, what's your goal here? Is it to actually win the governor's mansion, to move Governor Cuomo onto your agenda, or another possibility is that you just wind up weakening Andrew Cuomo and potentially opening the door for Rob Astorino? What is your goal?
My goal is to be governor of New York. I may be an underdog if I choose to run, but you know, it's not worth it to me to do a protest candidacy. You know, I really care about building power and building people power. And I look at the numbers. There's a chance to get in the office if, along the way, we end up forcing the governor to come to actually represent something closer to what the people of New York want. That would be great too. But at the end of the day, I want to be sitting there setting the vision for the state, identifying the people who are the best people to implement that vision, and really sort of aiming higher for the Empire State.
And any concerns that perhaps you might erode into Cuomo's numbers to the point where Rob Astorino could end up the governor of New York? That would be even further away from the policies that you're pushing for.
Well, to be clear, I plan to be running in the Democratic primary and plan to defeat Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary if I choose to run. And again, that's an open question. So if it ends up with one Democrat, me, and Rob Astorino, well then, you know, Andrew Cuomo might be considered the spoiler.
And finally, Professor, if I asked 100 people around the state who you are, I'm guessing 98% of them, 99, might not know the answer to that. Do you really think you can win this thing if you enter the race against Andrew Cuomo?
I do. I think there's enough dissatisfaction in the state. I mean, look at how unhappy people are just with his education policy alone. So I've got, if I choose to run, and I'm one of my only promises that I'll say, even during this time period, is I'm going to be absolutely honest the entire time. So I'm being pretty straightforward when I say I have not decided. But if I choose to run, I got 3 months to introduce myself. I'm confident, not because of who I am, but I'm confident because of my ideas. I think they align with the people of the state. I think people know the system is rigged. And they know Cuomo is part of that broken system, and he's not going to fix it.
Professor Zephyr Teachout from Fordham University Law, and also a potential challenger to Andrew Cuomo. Professor, thanks very much.
Thank you.